So hello and yes, welcome to my end of the month video, guys. Now, this is always a very exciting video for me. I love making these videos because I get to talk about all the films I've watched for the first time throughout the last month. And there's a lot of variety here again. David Fincher fans, Danny Boyle fans, what else we got? Muppets fans. We've got some exciting stuff to talk about today. There's a lot of cool stuff going on like that. So yeah, these videos are always super fun for me to make. So this one, of course, is January 2021. First month of 2021. Here's all the films I watched for the first time in 2021 in January. Now, of course, I'm going to mark them all out of 10 as well as we go. So first up, I was in a bit of a David Fincher mood at the start of the month, and I still am. I still very much plan to watch all of his discography. Just didn't want to plow through it all straight away, even though, as you can see, I done a couple straight off the bat. But I'm going to go back to David Fincher, as you'll see in the February video. But the first film I watched was Zodiac. Now, that's right, I'd never seen this movie before, and I didn't know much about the Zodiac killings before. It's just not something that's ever come up when I was at school, when I was in education. It's not something that's ever come up in conversation much. The Zodiac killings, it wouldn't really here in the UK, I guess. So this is something I knew more or less nothing about. I just heard it. I knew of the Zodiac killings, and that's it. And I didn't know what the story was behind it. So this film was fascinating to me. I wanted to watch this. The David Fincher films I've seen The Social Network, I've seen Gone Girl, Alien 3, Mank. There is another one that I've seen, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. I've seen 4 or 5 David Fincher films, but this is the one I wanted to watch next, mostly because Jake Gyllenhaal's in this. Jake Gyllenhaal is easily top 5 actor for me now. I've more or less loved nearly every film I've seen from him. The only film I haven't actually liked that he was in was Donnie Darko. Sorry, then he said Danny Darko. Zodiac was fascinating. I loved the story behind this, the characters and whatnot. Jake Gyllenhaal, of course, absolutely steals the show every moment he's on screen. He's such a fantastic actor. It was also really cool to see Robert Downey Jr. in something that is an Iron Man, I guess. It's always cool to see Robert Downey Jr. in a movie that is an Iron Man. Because even though he's amazing as Iron Man and he's, incredible, I don't want to take anything away from his performance in those movies. But it's fascinating to see him outside of the role. Unless it's Doolittle. But yeah, this film was actually haunting. I found it really scary at the end, to be honest. Just the psychological side to it. And I thought it was so well directed. And this was my favourite David Fincher film. Until a film we're going to talk about in a minute. I'm going to give this film a 9 out of 10. I thought it was damn near brilliant. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Next up is a film called Drive. Now, this is a film which I wanted to watch because Ryan Gosling's in it. I love Ryan Gosling. Who doesn't? He's a great actor. He's in a lot of great movies. A lot of my favourite films from the last 5 or 6 years. Nice Guys, La La Land, Blade Runner 2049. Ryan Gosling, he has a habit of picking really good movies. And a lot of people have been telling me this was one of his best. So I was like, you know what? I've got to pick it up. And here it is. I don't know if the camera's got this in frame. I picked it up and I watched it and I really enjoyed it. Although I would not say it's his best. I definitely prefer the 3 films I mentioned to Drive. It's not his worst film, it's better than like Gangster Squad, without a doubt. But it was a good movie. It wasn't quite, I think I almost had this film hyped up a little bit too much for me. While I really enjoyed it, it wasn't like the incredible masterpiece I was expecting, but I did have a really great time with it. Ryan Gosling was great. I loved the story. All of the shots where he's driving and stuff, the editing around that was fantastic. It was really good. The music was great as well. I still really like this film. I'm going to give it I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Next up is, of course, the other David Fincher film I want to talk about, and that is Seven. Now, that's right, I'd never seen Seven before, which is pretty amazing because, it's such a beloved movie. And, of course, I again, going into this, I didn't know much about it. I really didn't. But, again, fascinated by this movie. Some incredible actors in this film. Absolutely incredible. And I didn't know what to expect going into it, and what I got was, wow, there were some really graphic scenes which were hard to watch. And I sort of, Morgan Freeman was so good in it, but I think, once again, Brad Pitt just stole the show. He's such an incredible actor. But when it was building up to the scene at the end with the box, I had a pretty good suspicion as to what was coming there. But I love this movie. I think it's the best David Fincher film that I've seen so far. Now, bearing in mind, I haven't seen Fight Club, and is that like the only other really big, popular one of his that normally cracks people's top tier David Fincher films? I think I've seen most of his top tier films now, or what most people consider his top tier films. But yeah, I think this is my favourite David Fincher film. I loved it. I'm also going to give this film a 9. So I would say it's on similar levels to Zodiac. But this and Zodiac are definitely the two best David Fincher films I've seen. Really great movie. Next up, we're going to take it a step down. We're going from these absolutely amazing, well-directed, modern films. I mean, Seven's getting a bit old now, and we're going to go to some real 80s cheese here with Killer Clowns from Outer Space. This one I have my friend Reese to thank for. I'm not sure he's watching, but if he is, every time I talk about this movie, I gotta say, it's thanks to him that I saw this, because he was begging me, not begging, but he kept saying, you gotta watch this, you gotta watch this. I think it's his favourite film ever. And you know what? I can completely see why. This film was so fun. It's a stupid concept. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. A spaceship lands, disguises itself as a circus, and they're all disguised as clowns. It's a bit like It, I suppose. And, they have guns and they turn people into candy floss, and it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. The plot is just non-existent. It's a terrible plot. It's a terrible plot. The actors, well, they're trying, but it's just none of them are doing particularly great jobs. The effects are, they are what they are. They're from the 80s. It was made in the 80s with a low budget. But this film, I don't like saying this about films, because I feel like if you have to switch off, that means that it's a bad movie. However, sometimes there are exceptions where it's like, it's such a stupid concept that, yeah, maybe you do need to switch off, and this is one of them. And I had a really good time with it. Can't lie, I had an absolute blast with this movie. I thought it was so fun. It was so... You've just got to take it for what it is. It's one of those types of movies. You got to be fully aware of what you're watching, and if you are, you'll have a good time with it. And that's what happened with me. I've watched it twice now, because I really, really enjoyed it. I'm going to give Killer Clowns from Outer Space a 7 out of 10. Really fun time. Next up, we've got a classic here. I know, first time watch for me. Stand By Me. Wow. Possibly the best coming of age story I've ever seen. Incredible cast. All of the acting done such a good job. And I loved some of the styles and the themes they used in this movie. I love of course, it's been mocked in other movies now, like, of course, the classic narration over the top of the film at the start and in the end. But it's great. It was so fantastic. I thought it was just so interesting watching this coming of age story, and you kind of root for these kids the whole time. And it also brings back memories of when I was sort of like 10 to 12, maybe even 14, where I was sort of going out, walking around the streets with my mates, and we just... we do what kids do. I mean, it's a lot harder to do that nowadays. But anyway, it's sort of, I guess, it's nostalgic to people. I can imagine it's 10 times more nostalgic to people who grew up, in the 70s or 80s, where this film feels even more relatable. I thought this film was fantastic. The dialogue was incredible. I'm going to give Stand By Me an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was incredible. Next up is the movie Leon. I had no idea what this film was about going into it. Of course, this film was sent to me by the wonderful Alex Pitt, so I really wanted to watch it for him. I'd seen this poster everywhere. I had no idea what it was about. And of course, Natalie Portman's name stood out to me. I was like, okay, I like Natalie Portman. One actress in it who I like. So I thought, you know what, put this on. And I found it really interesting, because I was expecting it to be like a late 90s, early 2000s movie. And then what I got was a very early 90s movie. This must have been one of her first movies. I think she was 13 when she filmed it. Now, I found the film really interesting, but one thing I'll say is there was some... I wasn't sure about the relationship with Leon and Natalie Portman's character. I found that a little bit off, I must say. I'm just going to check to see if my camera's still recording. I apologise, people. Not very professional of me. It is. Okay. So, I heard a phone call come through. Yeah, I found their relationship a bit off. Other than that, though, I thought the dialogue and stuff was fantastic. I found a lot of the action scenes really good. Gary Oldman was very good in it, as he normally is. Yeah, I really enjoyed Leon. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Next up is, we're going back to some cheese now with the 80s. Now, after I watched Killer Clowns, I actually asked for some suggestions of films like it, and someone suggested to me this, which I'll pull out now. House, the collection. So I did pick this up, and wow, I watched the first film. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, don't worry. People who like these films, I'm gonna be a bit kinder towards the end, because the first movie I wasn't huge on. It was just a very meh film. I picked it up for the cheese, and there wasn't loads of cheese in the first film, so, it is what it is. But it still had an interesting story to it. It was okay. It was fine. I just don't think I'd ever put this film on again. It was very middle of the road. It's as sort of generic as generic can be, I think, unfortunately, the first movie for an 80s horror. I'll give it a 5. It wasn't bad, but I didn't love it. Fans of this franchise, don't worry. We're going to talk about the second one near the end of the video, and I enjoyed it more. Next up, Trainspotting, the first one, Danny Boyle, maybe his most beloved film. And honestly, I've seen 6 or 7 of his movies now, and this is definitely top 2 for me. Trainspotting was fantastic. I loved the cast. I loved it, all 4 of them. I can't name all of the actors by names there, but they're fantastic. Ewan McGregor, of course, is the obvious one that I would obviously know. But this film's fantastic. The relationship between these characters is incredible. The story is unbelievable. And I love how British it is. There are a few scenes that are a bit hard to get through. There's a scene involving a baby, which, those of you who've seen it will know exactly what I'm talking about. And that was a very hard thing to sit through. But, yeah, Trainspotting was absolutely incredible. I'm going to give it a... I'm torn between an 8.5 and a 9, but I think I'm going to go 8.5. Then I watched a movie called Kroll. Also, the 80s. I can't quite make out the year on my premium up there. Yeah, I didn't mind Kroll. I think I don't know. I think I expected it to be a bit more cheesy than what it was, but I still ended up enjoying it and having a good time. Some of the effects, obviously, very dated, but they're hilarious to watch now. They're obviously trying to spend a lot of money on this movie, but back then, of course, just isn't looking as good as what it probably could have if maybe they dialed some of the effects down, in actual fact. Yeah, I remember I zoned out a couple times during the movie, and I sort of lost track of where the plot was going. But hey, it is what it is. Kroll, I'll give 6.5 to. Kroll can have a 6.5. Next up, I watched Wonder, which was also very kindly sent to me, which is right here. This movie broke me. I can't lie. This movie absolutely broke me. By the end of it, I was a wreck. This movie was fantastic. It was absolutely incredible. I love films when they show you different points of view. I really love that style of filmmaking. I think that's really interesting. And every character you feel sorry for. This is just something that could happen to any family, and it's incredible to watch. Really, I remember tears in my eyes multiple times. God, this film was fantastic. If you haven't seen Wonder, I just highly recommend you go out and watch it. It's a fantastic movie. I'm going to give Wonder an 8.5 out of 10. Next up, we've got T2, Trainspotting. Every time I say T2, I think of Terminator 2, the second Trainspotting film. Also directed by Danny Boyle. Now, maybe an unpopular opinion. I think it probably is slightly. Because I watched them both more or less back to back. You know, I only watched Crow and Wonder between. So I watched them within the space of 3-4 days of each other. I think I preferred this to the first one. Purely just because I found the story more interesting. And the cinematography in this film was off the scale. Danny Boyle got so creative with this movie. It was gorgeous at times. I felt like the characters were more fleshed out in this one as well. And yeah, I just found, while I loved the first film, I thought it was fantastic. I think this one done a better job at just keeping things feeling more fresh, more modern, more alive. It kept the story going better. It developed the characters more. And it picked up really well from where the first one left off. Which films don't normally do when there's that big of a gap between sequels. But yeah, I really loved this movie. I'm going to actually give this one a 9. Thought it was fantastic. Next up is Flashdance. I think this is 1990, I think. But, you know, it feels just like an 80s movie. This is, again, I was sort of in the mood for something fun here again. As you guys can tell, I was dancing a lot between really serious and really fun movies this month. And when I say fun, I mean cheesy movies. We all get in our moods. Flashdance was definitely one of those cheesy ones I was in the mood for. And overall, had a really good time with it. I love the music for a start. The music choices in it were fantastic. And I really enjoyed the story between, of course, the lead character and her love interest. I thought it was really interesting to watch. It was just fun to go back to that era of music and watch people dance to it and stuff. And style of filmmaking where everyone's got perms and stuff, of course. And it's, you know, that classic feel of the late 80s. I just think the film ended a bit abruptly. It was just a bit like, oh, okay, oh, we're done. Fair enough. So, yeah, Flashdance was good. It was good for what it was. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. Next, I've actually reviewed this film in full here on the channel. So, I'll go quick. Outside the Wire, Anthony Mackie's new movie. This is my first movie of 2021. I thought this film was very dull. This plot was just not interesting at all. And while there isn't anything particularly awful about this movie or anything particularly bad necessarily, there's nothing very good either. Very middle of the road film. In fact, I'm going to stick with the score I gave it in my review. And I'd say it's ever so slightly below average. I'll give it a 4.5 out of 10. Then we got Shallow Grave, which I believe is Danny Boyle's first movie, starring, once again, Ewan McGregor and Christopher Eccleston. And I forget the name of the actress who's in it, but wow, what a movie. This film was incredible. This is on the level of Trainspotting. It was absolutely fantastic. If you like Trainspotting and you haven't seen Shallow Grave, make sure you go watch it because it's just as good as the Trainspotting films. I love the plot of this one. I found it fascinating because you've got 3 characters here who are all so different, and when they're put in this very horrible situation of, okay, our lodger has died but he's got a shitload of money, are we gonna keep the money and hide the body? It's like, and you see them all slowly break in different ways, and it's a fascinating story to watch unravel. For a first movie, this is one of the best debut movies. I'm pretty sure it's Danny Boyle's debut movie anyway. It's one of the best debut movies I've seen. I'm going to give Shallow Grave an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was a really, really great film. Then, are you ready, Muppets fans? Because I decided, even though I grew up with Muppets Treasure Island and I've always liked the Muppets, and I'd seen the Muppets Wizard of Oz and I'd seen a couple episodes of the TV show here and there, I'd never sat down and watched anything else from the Muppets. So it's just Treasure Island many times, Wizard of Oz, and in a couple of the TV shows. I thought maybe this time I'll watch the proper movie. So I did. I sat down and watched the movie from the late 70s, the Muppets movie. And this was fantastic. I know a lot of these characters from watching the few Muppet things I had over the years. And it was nice to see kind of their origins, where they sort of first showed up and stuff, or in their first movie. it was nice to see where they all sort of fit in. I love the road trip theme. It's just so much fun. I love road trip movies. And yeah, I honestly just had a blast with this movie. I thought it was super fun. Trying to put yourself back in when this movie was made. I think there's a lot of technical aspects to it which are really clever. And I actually think it feels like it's not, it doesn't feel as old as what it is, I think. I think it stood the time quite well, this movie, actually. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was a very fun movie. Then we got The Great Muppets Caper, which I watched straight after. I think this day I just didn't have much on. I was like, yeah, I'll just watch them both. This is the weakest Muppets thing I've watched so far. I didn't have as good of a time with this one. They come over to London, and it's kind of a bit of the same old type stuff. And to be honest, even though I only watched this film last month, I don't really remember loads from it. I just don't think I was a huge fan of this one. Yeah, I think that's genuinely the best I've got for it, because I can't remember much about it. I'll give the Great Muppets Caper a 6, because I didn't dislike it. I still had a fun time with it. It's just, it's not as good as the first one. Then, I watched, for the first time again, hard to believe, because it was so very kindly sent to me, I watched The Karate Kid for the first time, the original. And wow, I can see why this is like a lot of people's favourite movie from the 80s. I really can. This film was absolutely fantastic. The coming-of-age story in it's great. I love all the relationships that this kid has in this movie. Like, obviously with the girl he's interested in, his relationship with his mum, his teacher, even the bully at the end. And again, this film is just a great underdog story, of course. Great music as well. I'm going to give this film an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was thoroughly entertaining. Then we've got The Muppets Christmas Carol. That's right. Just missed December. And I'll be honest, I preferred this to the Disney Jim Carrey Christmas Carol movie. I preferred this. Thought this was more interesting. Michael Caine played the hell out of this. I don't know if he just kept forgetting it was just a Muppets movie, but that Michael Caine went all out. He was great in this film. I found all of the ghosts just really well done, all really interesting. My favourite was the second ghost, of course. I mean, he's normally most people's favourites, I think, because he's the happy, jolly one. And I think they genuinely picked all the best Muppets to do each character in this classic Charles Dickens story. It's fantastic. I can see why this is a lot of people's favourite Muppets movie, and I don't think I can say it's my favourite because I'm just so biased towards Treasure Island. I grew up with that one. I love that movie. But this is a very close second. I absolutely love this film. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. And then the last Muppets movie, so because I know some people are probably a bit fed up of hearing me talk about Muppets, is the Muppets movie from, is it 2011, I think, with Amy Adams? The sort of reboot one. So yeah, I watched that, and I had a good time with it. I thought it was really good. Again, I love the throwbacks to the original, how they try to make it like that. It's like, oh yeah, no, road trip again, and they sort of pinch bits, like there's the big furry Wookiee-looking Muppet who's like chasing after him again in this one. And I love how they do stuff like that. They do the little throwbacks and whatnot. I think it's really fascinating. And I like the fact that Amy Adams and her boyfriend and his Muppet mate are all sort of idolising the Muppets for their show and stuff. I think it's cool that they're acknowledging things like that. I thought it was a nice touch. I really enjoyed this movie. I'm really looking forward to carrying on with this little franchise of Muppet movies, because I know Ricky Gervais in the next one, or the one after that, which I'm a huge fan of his. So I'm really excited to get onto that one soon. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I'm going to give it I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Then I watched Slumdog Millionaire for the first time, another Danny Boyle film. A lot of people consider this his best. Personally, I think I'm just a fan of the Trainspotting films and Shallow Grave more. But this film was still fantastic. I loved the story of it. I loved it. It's very interesting going out into that part of the world and seeing how different things are through this movie's eyes. I found it fascinating how horrible some people are. But it was a really nice story. And it had a lot of heart to it. And again, there's some hard scenes to get through in this movie. But it was a really fantastic film still. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Then we come back to The House. With House 2. Does House 2 have like the second story? House 2, the second story. A lot better than the first one. A lot better. The story was just more interesting. I love the fact that they realised they were making stupid horror films here. Like, when I say that, that's not a dig at the genre, because horror's incredible, but it was like a stupid horror film. And they embraced it and they ran with it. It made it so much better than the first one. The grandpa in it cracked me up. The effects were incredible. I love the fact that they'd walk through some doors in the house and then all of a sudden they were in these like Jumanji like type dinosaurs walking about stuff. I thought it was really funny. It was just a lot better than the first one. I had a really good time with it. House 2, the second story, I will give 6.5 out of 10 to. Then, I'm going to be controversial here for my second to last film. The Tree of Life, which is which I got for Christmas from my parents on Criterion, so I feel a bit bad, almost, criticising this movie. Because first off, let me start off with the positives. This film is gorgeous. It is cinematography. It's maybe the best looking film I've ever seen. This film is absolutely incredible, which is why I'm not going to give it a negative score. I can't give it a negative score because of the effort that's gone into making this. Well, not only the cinematography is beautiful, the acting is fantastic, the score is mind-blowingly brilliant. However, the narrative and the way that this narrative was told, I did find very pretentious. And I think a lot of people can agree before they start hitting the dislike button. You can see that this film wouldn't be for everyone. And I don't think this film was for me too much. While I can really appreciate the aspects of it, which are amazing, because there's no doubt that there are aspects to it, which are amazing. Some of the camera angles and the camera techniques that are used are fantastic. Again, I just didn't appreciate the way the narrative, or the narrative itself, the way it was told. It was very meh for me as an overall watch. Even though, I can admit, the cinematography, the score, more or less everything about it was, beautiful. So I'll give this film, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I'm sorry for the people that love it. I really am. I've got to be honest, and I've been honest. Now, the last film which I have to talk about this month is now officially the oldest film I've ever seen. That's right. I watched the oldest film I'd ever seen, and it wasn't intentional. I just put it on because I wanted to watch it. Then when I put it on my Letterboxd, link in the description to that, by the way, if you haven't followed me on there, I realised, oh my god, this is the oldest film I've seen, and that is from 1933, King Kong. That's right, I'm in a huge kaiju movie kind of mood at the minute. I just rewatched Skull Island and King of the Monsters. I'm currently watching Gamera, the original movies, which I've just bought the Arrow box sets for. And I thought I'd watch King Kong as well, the original. Why not? This film was absolutely amazing. It's baffling to me that this film is 90 years old, or 88 or whatever. It's mind-blowing to me that the movie is that old, because it looks fantastic still. And like the effects on Kong, the stop motion, it really doesn't look as bad as I thought it would going into it. Honestly, it's hard to review this movie or do a quick brief summary, because it's as I say, nearly 90 years old. It was made in a different time. It's so long ago. The only thing that I'd really genuinely criticise it for, but again, acting was very different back then. While the acting for the most part was good in it, the lead actress, every 5 seconds she's bloody screaming. I don't think she had any dialogue. It was just constant screaming. No, I'm kidding. She did have dialogue. But the constant screaming did wear me down a bit near the end. I was just a bit like, oh, okay, can you just please stop? Because it's like, Kong could have her in his hand. All you can hear in the background is her going, wah! But yeah, that would, honest to God, be my only complaint with the movie. Other than that, I'll give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's fantastic and it stands the test of time. Really great movie. If you haven't seen the original King Kong, definitely go do so. There's a beautiful HMV premium of it. But there we go. There's all the films I watched throughout the month of January. I hope you enjoyed it as always, guys. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a message, and as always, I'll see you next time for another video. Bye-bye.